Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. The Masters starts this Friday. I've got Pieman here for the betting preview because when we first spoke the other day, there was no odds available. They are now, as you can see on screen, the usual suspects at the top of the market. We're not going to run through every price. The only surprise to me and Pieman at this stage is the difference between 9-2 Michael Smith and the favourite 11-4 Michael van Gerwen. We thought those two prices would be closer together. Pieman actually thought that Michael Smith might be favourite. He is not. So maybe when we get to the end of this video, Michael Smith may well be the Pieman selection at 9-2. We're going to go through the first round games first. All on Friday night, all on ITV. 8 games, best of 11, cracking stuff. All very, very close. It's an absolute minefield of a session and probably of a tournament. The biggest prize player on Friday night in those 8 games is 6-4. That gives an indication of just how competitive it is. From an outright perspective, you may want to avoid round one participants altogether and concentrate on the seeds. We'll get to that kind of strategy at the end. So I'm not messing about, Pieman. There's the 8 games for Friday, as you can see. Starting at the top of that list with Heta against Smith, a belter. 4-5 Heta, even money Smith. And the winner plays a certain Michael Smith, who is the newly crowned world champion.
Yeah, what a way to start the batting year. We've got literally this may well be the 24 best players in the world, maybe bar 3 or 4 of them. A lot of the sort of hangers on have dropped out of the 24 now. We've got a lot of new blood in this tournament. Not real new blood, but new blood in terms of being in this kind of competition. So I can't wait.
One of them.
Can't wait for this. Yeah, Ross Smith, European champion, new blood. I mean, that is a real addition. There's some of these players coming in here who'll fancy the chance of winning this and on debut, So yeah, Damon Heta, Ross Smith, quite rightly priced. I think a lot of these are quite rightly priced tight. On the recent form and the TV form, you go with Ross Smith. But personally, I'm expecting a really big year on the TV from Damon Heta. I thought he put in a really polished performance against Adrian Lewis at the World Championship and looked like he'd maybe turned a corner. Didn't work out for him in his next game beyond that. But, Ross Smith, it's really hard to take him on because he's just been so rock solid since winning that European Championship. I mean, the way he went out to Dirk Duijvenbode was so unlucky. I'd be looking at playing the overs on the legs this. I think this is going 10-8, 10-9 either way, and I don't think anyone will be surprised. To be honest, I'd be more surprised if it doesn't go really, really close and really deep.
It's not even going that far, Pieman, because remember, these are best of 11. This is Players' Championship
there you go.
stuff.
So there you go. I'm skipping ahead to round 2 there.
And that's why anything can happen. Short form,
yeah, so
very closely matched.
It can. I think this goes right to the wire. I'll be playing the overs on the legs.
Yeah, but possibly over 9
Well, I'll
legs,
tell you. You carry on. I'll find you the price.
Yeah. On to the next game. A theme really for me. I've only got one bet in the first round, Pieman. We'll come to that. Next game, as you see on the screen there, Aspen 8-13 to beat Bunting 13-10. We've been here before with Bunting 2 years ago. I think I backed Bunting to win this tournament at 100-1 on the back of a World Championship excellent display. He's done the same again this year, i.e. he's played really well at the World Championships, but he hasn't really done it away from the world's Ali Pali for quite a while.
By the way, just on that Damon Heta Ross Smith game, basically 10 or more legs, so both to get to 4 is 10-11. That's a play for me. No, I see that going really deep. Yeah, totally agree with your comments there. I mean, you've kind of flagged this. It's hard to have really conviction in your opinions on this first round because it is a bit of a minefield. I wouldn't disagree with you too strongly on what you said about Stephen Bunting. He's had a fantastic World Championship, but Nathan Aspinall, he's not a man you want to be taking on, really, as he just gets it done, especially over the short format. Aspinall's Players' Championship Pro Tour form, really, really good last year. Clearly, really enjoys these little short 6 legs. It doesn't struggle to get up for this kind of game, and I think he probably edges Bunting there.
And the winner of that plays Danny Noppert, who is the 8th and last seed, if you like. Winnable for either, I would say.
Certainly is.
Bunting or Aspinall. So certainly an easier task than the first game that we could.
It's like a lot of these sections, all 3 of those players will be quite happy with the section they're in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Onto the third game listed, Dirk van Dijvenbode, the shortest price favourite of any favourite, but not that short, at 4-7 to beat Ratajski. I think Van Dijvenbode wins this, and he could probably do it on some sort of handicap basis as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the way I'd look at it as well. Maybe Dirk to cover the handicap. I mean, obviously, it's trappy in the short format with Dirk, and we know he can be a little bit flat in patches, but he's a Pro Tour winner last year. and really, really rock solid on those kind of floor events. So he's well versed in winning these first to six legs. On the other hand, Ratajski's been bang out of form on the floor for a while now, and while the short format always favours the underdog, I would be with Dirk on the handicap.
Yeah, but I don't price. I'm guessing it'll be minus two and a
I could
half,
find
maybe,
you one. A lot of
even money also.
Such is the world we live in now. We actually get a lot of alternative lines on these handicaps. But leave that with me. We'll move on, and then we can run through these at the end quickly.
Yeah, that's it. Next on the list is pretty much a coin toss. Joe Cullen, last year's winner, but unseeded this year, as he is number 12 in the world against Chris Dobey, who, as we know, went on a pretty decent run at the World Championship.
Yeah, again, both players will fancy this. I'd have to go with Cullen. Really, really good last year. On the whole, I thought had a little bit of a dip off at the end of the year, but a couple of years ago we saw him transition into this winning machine on the Pro Tour, and then he took it on to the next level on TV last year within a dart of winning the Premier League, as many will remember, won the Masters, as you quite rightly point out, and he just became a very reliable player. He's become this kind of player now where he can average in the low 80s and still find a way to win, and I think he finds a way past Chris Dobey. It's not a game I'd be getting too passionate about, especially given the short format, but I would definitely side with Cullen.
He didn't do a whole lot towards the back end of last year, though, Cullen.
No, fair comment.
Including the Worlds, from anything from the Grand Slam Players Championship finals into the Worlds. Yeah, he'll be hoping to pick up form. He's coming. This time 11 months ago, after he'd won the Masters, if you'd have said Joe Cullen was number 12 in the world, you'd have probably been surprised at that. But that's where he finds himself. And the winner of that takes on Luke Humphries, who I'll just put it out there now, Pieman. He's in the region of 18 to 20 to 1, Luke Humphries. He's going to be a better mind. We'll come on to that one in more detail. Into the lower half of the draw, and this is where the klaxon goes for my only bet of the first round. I think Ryan Searle at 7-5 to beat Dave Chisnall at 8-13 is a bet, and I will be backing Searle. I think Chisnall's the right favourite for sure, but Searle showed some signs in a very similar format to this in the Players' Championship finals at the back end of last year, having done virtually nothing before that. And then I think he played pretty well at the Worlds as well, where he could have won the game in which he went out in. I think you can remind me who the opponent was. Jose.
That was 3-0 up when he lost 4-3.
Yeah, loads of 180s. Yeah, like you say, 3-0 up, a real capitulation. But yeah, Searle 7-5. That's a bet for me.
Yeah, signs are there that Ryan Searle is getting back to the Ryan Searle that we were getting used to, and he was in a space in his career where he was actually, we were tempted to put him up as outright selections in these kind of tournaments. And, if he can threaten to get back to that form, then he's a real danger for everyone on the circuit, because you've said it time and time again, his tops hitting is near enough second to none when he's firing, and he loves a max as well. So what's not to like?
Yeah, plenty to like. Winner of that takes on Peter Wright, who we're going to come on to because he won at the weekend, having looked pretty abject since the Grand Slam. He had excuses for that. But yeah, looked, we had a really good run at the Nordic Masters over the weekend. Not my kind of tournaments, as you know, Pieman, but I think he had to beat Van Gerwen, Smith and Price on the way to winning that. So the form's there for Snake coming into this one as the number 2 seed. Next on your list is James Wade, 8-13 against Callum Ridds, 13-10. We've covered Ridds a reasonable amount in our World Championship coverage. He obviously got beat by Josh Rock in the first round. One of the weaker players in this tournament on form at the moment.
Yeah, but he might be playing one of the other weaker players on form at the moment. I mean, James Wade had a brilliant start to 2022. I don't think any of us saw him, competing for majors again the way he did. He was brilliant in the Premier League for long periods. But yeah, certainly think it's fair to say that he dipped off in the second half of the year. One of the only seeds to fall in round 2 of the World Championships, beaten by Jim Williams. Didn't do an awful lot wrong that day, but yeah, I mean, look, I'd probably fancy him to beat Ridds, especially with Ridds out of form. It's a game that suits Wade, isn't it? He maybe finds a way to win this, but again, not one I would be going crazy on at all.
Yeah, it's one of them short format ones, because if Ridds is on, particularly over that short distance, I think the Worlds doesn't suit him. Yeah, the Worlds doesn't suit him over the longer set format, even in the early rounds, in my opinion. But yeah, Ridds over 6 legs can beat anyone, but you could say that about anyone in this field. Probably your second favourite round game of the round, Jose. Pretty much rejuvenated at the Worlds. I'd go as far to say some comical darts in there from Jose, but certainly a pick up in form against Gabriel Clemens, the first ever German semi-finalist. Jose, a very slight favourite, 10 to 11. Clemens, best price, even money. The winner plays a certain Michael van Gerwen.
Yeah, Clemens best bet of the first round for me. Yeah, really pleased to see Jose back to some kind of form at the Worlds, but there was enough sort of tomfoolery and mediocrity in there to make me want to kind of take him on. I feel like he's very close to refinding what it was that made him a major winner at the Grand Slam and made him Premier League, firing in the 9 darters at the Premier League and stuff. But let's be honest, he's still a shadow of that player, really. We're seeing it in patches rather than anything. Gabriel Clemens, on the other hand, had a really poor 2022, then just started to find a little bit of form coming towards the Worlds, but I don't think anyone anticipated that run to the semi-finals. And let's remember, the last time we saw Gabriel Clemens on screen, he was serving it up to Gerwen price for the best part of 6. He smashed Gerwen price and serving it up to Michael Smith for the best part of 6 sets. So yeah, I'm more than happy to take him on at 10 to 11. I actually thought he'd be even money. I actually thought he'd be about 8 to 11 for this. So yeah, he's a bet for me.
He was fantastic, Clemens, at the Worlds, and it's the type of player that looks to me where he's going to use that as a springboard and continue on that,
so.
rather than a flash in the pan, as we've seen people make semi-finals. Stephen Bunting mentioned earlier, but I think Clemens should and will use it as a springboard.
Well, he's a confidence player for me, and the confidence had zapped out of him over the previous 18 months. But yeah, God, I mean, he should be coming into this believing that he can make the semi-final again. And Jose is a fairly reasonable starter for him.
Yeah, agree. And Clemens is only 100 to 1 in the outright market because he potentially plays Michael van Gerwen in round 2, again, which we'll come on to. Bottom of the list there of the first round games, Dimitri van den Bergh, 8 to 13, played pretty well over the Nordic Masters over the weekend against Gary Anderson, 11 to 8. Said in the initial video on the Masters, Gary Anderson has told us that unlike usual years for the Masters, where he doesn't practice in the lead up and basically doesn't care, he's going for it this year. He's already told us, Pieman, he's on record, 11 to 8.
We've heard it all before, haven't we, Gary? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to try and rein myself in this year because I always get carried away with the Gary Anderson renaissance, as regular viewers will no doubt know. Look, I think this is a difficult game to call. I think Dimitri van den Bergh responded quite impressively out in Bahrain, because don't forget that we saw him get scrubbed 6-0 by MVG in the World semi-final, a game that he came into really confident he was going to run Van Gerwen close, and he got absolutely destroyed. So that could have, knocked him off for a couple of months. As it was, he looked in pretty good nick on the World Series event. So yeah, I think tough test for Gary Anderson, and I personally think Rob Cross will probably beat either of them in round 2.
Yeah, Rob Cross, who went a little bit under the radar at the Worlds, didn't make it all that far, but was still playing well enough. But yeah, from an outright perspective, and I'll switch back to there. Yeah, I just think you've got to back a seed because they avoid the first round mayhem.
Oh, you're gonna love my strategy in a minute. Go on.
Yeah, you're going for the unseeded players because that's what's happened in recent years with the likes of Joe Cullen, Johnny Clayton.
Yeah,
but
fine, yeah.
I just think that first round's mayhem. And if I could back it. I'm probably going to chuck a couple of quid on Searle at 100 to 1, but he could go out in the first round, no problem. He's odds on to go out in the first round. But yeah, the cream, the longer the games get in all tournaments, the longer the games get and the more legs there is, the cream usually rises to the top. Round 2 is best of 19. Round 1 is only best of 11. So that's my thinking there. We touched on it earlier, but Michael Smith 9 to 2. You expected him to be shorter than that, Pieman?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't put people off, but then I was looking at the top of the market before. I know I say this in most tournaments, but you can make a case for all of them. That's why there is no, runaway favourite at the top of that market. As short as Van Gerwen is at 11 to 4, you've still got 4 players in single figures there. Peter Wright 9 to 1. Some will go for him off the back of that win in the Nordic Masters, where he looks, very good. Gerwen price making back-to-back finals in those 2 exhibition events. So you could say that he's in the best form of the lot in terms of consistency. Michael Smith winning the Worlds, winning in Bahrain, and then, falling short only narrowly. So that could make appeal. Look, I totally understand what you're saying. The first round is a minefield. I had a little look back on the last couple of years, and yes, the last 2 renewals of this, all 4 of the finalists have been playing in that first round, right? Now, I think the first round is, while you say it's a minefield, it can also be a starter into a tournament. And another interesting observation I made is that both Johnny Clayton and Joe Cullen, the last two winners of this event, both won their first round game and then beat Michael van Gerwen in round 2. Now, I don't know if you're a believer in these kind of things repeating themselves. I'm not so much personally, but I think what it does serve to show us is that, sometimes having a game on the stage and settling into a tournament can be beneficial. I also had the spanner into the works about players who, potentially could win this tournament, reach the final and parachute themselves into the Premier League conversation. And all of this combines for me to say that the best way for me to play this outright market is just to have a couple of bullets at the bottom end and then see how the tournament develops. If I want to have if I want to play the top end of the market, it's not going to do any harm for me to watch the round 2 matches and then, make an assessment ahead of the quarterfinals. But at the moment, and I see you've already scrolled down your screen
probably need to scroll further
in anticipation. Well, yeah, I mean, you touched on it already. I think Gabriel Clemens at 100-1 can have a few of my shillings just in case he managed to replicate his World Championship form, which would be more than good enough to see him past Jose de Sousa. I'm happy to take on Van Gerwen on the off chance that he's a little bit cold versus a player that's warmed up, as we've seen in the last 2 years. And I'm going into it, fully aware that it's 100-1 shot, and I will probably lose my money, so I'm not going to go silly on that. And then if you scroll a little bit further up, not down.
I was just say, Pieman, I've got absolutely no problem at all with you backing Gabriel Clemens at 100-1. I really haven't. He's the most overpriced person in the field.
Yeah, I think so. I think your comments on Ryan Searle were also fair. I think he's a similar price, and I think I'd sooner back Ryan Searle than some of the guys up at the top of the market, just because of the nature of this tournament. There's other tournaments where I wouldn't be looking at this end of the market. I'd be looking further up. And yeah, the other one that I was going to play, and it's really I'm flip flopping between the two. I'm going to play Damon Heta at 50. I know that might be slightly less convincing for some viewers who've been disappointed with Damon's TV exploits, but I actually think when you drill down and look at Damon's year as a whole last year, and he said it himself on his social media, that is the best year of his career. He's won the World Cup TV title where he was the star of the show, and I really liked his performance against Adrian Lewis, and I would not be surprised if he goes on a little run here. I'm gutted he's got Ross Smith first round. I think that's two of the first round entrants who could have won this potentially playing each other in the first round. So that's a bit of a shame. And again, I could back Clemens and Heta. They could both be out halfway through night 1. I go into that with my eyes open. But what I will do is, assess round 1, assess round 2, and then I may play the top of the market once I've seen a few games, because some of these players have been playing over in Bahrain and the Nordic Masters. Some of them we haven't seen since Ali Pali. So there really is a lot of variables and unknowns, but I'm not frightened to play outsiders in this tournament. It is a minefield, and one thing is guaranteed: it's going to be a really entertaining start of the season.
Absolutely. That just leaves me, Pieman, to say where my outright money's going. Scattering it around a little bit and backing more runners than you, which doesn't usually happen. Right, I'll start with my main pick. I'm in danger of getting my fingers burnt following the World Championship again, but Luke Humphries at 20-1, I think is a decent price.
Yeah.
He would be slight favourite against Cullen or Dobey in round 2, in my opinion, and he can beat Gerwen Price on a going day. We know the issues that Gerwen Price has on UK soil. Anything could happen thereafter. I think he's going to be stinging. He made it to the quarter-final of the World Championships, Humphries, and he was absolutely awful in that quarter-final. Reports that he may have had flu or something like that. He had a big year last year. He will want an even bigger year this year. Many people think that he's in the Premier League. I don't really like that discussion. I don't care. But another run here, and he will be one of those one of the players that will could cement himself on that list should he go deep or win this.
And another thing for the Humphries case as well would be that for me that we're presuming that Dirk van Duijvenbode is going to get past Christoph Ratajski. That is a tough game for Gerwen Price if Dirk has warmed up and Price is cold. Because Dirk, you don't know how much he's going to benefit from playing that game the day before.
Well, Pieman, you didn't know this, but that has led me perfectly on to my second bet. That is Dirk van Duijvenbode.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
He would be my most confident pick of any of the first round players to win his first round. He's the shortest price for a reason. I won't be backing him at 4-7, but I think he will beat Ratajski. I'm going to look at the handicaps, as I've already said. Dirk's 40-1. He can beat Gerwen Price for the reasons given by yourself. And then from there, hoping that anything can happen. He was involved in a couple of stonking games at the World Championship. I think he's a good player, and I've said for a long time I think he'll win a big one. This is not a major in my opinion, but it's a big E. And that leads me on to the final question. I've already alluded to it. Ryan Searle, and if you're betting with a certain bookmaker towards the right-hand side of Oddschecker, you're probably going to be getting 130-1 in my experience when you press the little boost button. If you qualify, you can sometimes get on a roll in these weekend match play type tournaments. I've already mentioned it. Finished 2022 in the best form we've seen from Searle in a while. He is the outsider to beat Chisnall. Hopefully you get through that and then wish for the best. Involved in a stonking game with Dirk, the previous selection in the Players' Championship finals. Searle lost that in a final leg in an identical format to this, 10-9. Similar ding-donger with Jose at the Worlds, as you've said, 3-0 up, 4-3. Should have won that game, obviously. 180s, double tops is the script. Fingers crossed he can come through Chizzy, and away we go from there.
Like it. And I will just run through some of those singles that we mentioned from the first round because I loaded them into my bet slip while we were talking on Oddschecker. Yes, just to give you a couple of them.
Heta
over 9.5 legs in Heta versus Smith is 10-11. So you both basically need both players to get to 4 there. I'm very, very confident with that one. Joe Cullen, for me, would be a bet to beat Chris Dobey. And I know you fancy Ryan Searle odds against to beat Dave Chisnall. As I say, Gabriel Clemens would be my nap of the round to beat Jose. 19-20, just shy of evens. I think that's very generous. And Dirk on a minus 1.5 handicap is just under evens, 10-11. So that's to win 6-4 or better. I think we can agree that looks like a nice price.
Yeah, I do. I do agree with that one. Yeah, I'll be on. Although I said I was only having one bet in the first round, I've talked myself into 3. Searle to beat Chisnall 7-5. Dirk minus 1.5 as Pieman's just mentioned, and I'll follow you in with Clemens at even money.
Like it.
If the Sousa is on form, you could say this about all players in the first round. If they're on form, they'll win. But that price is wrong. Even money Clemens is the wrong price.
For me, it is. Yeah.
We've gone through the outrights as well, Pieman, so we'll get all them in the description as usual. Quick fire there, and it's a quick fire weekend. Friday night, Saturday, second round games, and then Sunday they play the quarter semis and final. So get strapped in. Plenty of action to be watching on telly this weekend.